Perfect. Okay, I'll just we'll do a quick intro so we get it on the recording in case we're running into people later. Hi, I'm Sarah Hedges. I am the small animal superintendent, and I've been a rabbit leader for 20-ish years, and actually I've had rabbits for the last 25 or so. And so today we're gonna walk through small animals, so poultry, a little bit of KV, and rabbits. And then, Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself now, or you want to wait?
Yeah, I'll introduce myself now. I'm Sierra Galvin. I'm one of the poultry superintendents, um, and poultry and pigeons, and have been around for a long time. I was superintendent about 10 years.
Okay, so we are going to start with rabbits. And so I've got some stuff in this deck that I'm going to take you guys through just to cover kind of high level, and then we'll get on the internet for a minute and I'll show you some of the sites. And the goal of kind of today is to explain some of the breed classes, how things work, where to find resources. So when it comes to your project, fair, those sorts of things, you can have what you need. So American Rabbit Breeders Association, or ARBA, ARBA is the other way you hear it sometimes, is kind of our gold standard for the rabbit project. And everything I'm saying here also kind of applies to KVs. KVs are kind of they probably wouldn't like it referred to this way, but the tag along project of rabbits. We share a lot of resources because there are a lot of commonalities. There is the American KV Breeders Association as well, but a lot of the resources we share. So if you haven't already, highly recommend joining for at least your first year. A youth membership to ARBA is $12, and the best thing about it is you get this amazing resource down here, the official guidebook to raising better rabbits and KVs. It truly is one of the best rabbit resources out there, and it comes free with your membership when you first sign up. So definitely worth at least doing it for the first year so you get that. And that has a lot of questions that you're going to run into, management guides. It's kind of like a general catch-all for everything you need to know about raising and showing rabbits. The other handbook that I would recommend getting, and this is something that's a little bit it's more if you're like breeding and showing, but it's good resources and it's not really expensive, and that's the Standard of Perfection. A new one comes out every 5 years. And so you can see, like, see if they'll see with the blur. I've got them here. They have different covers. And the information changes a little bit. So if you're using an old one, it's not the end of the world. But after every convention, there's usually some changes as far as colors and different things that are accepted. So you just kind of add those in. And then every 5 years, they come out with a new book that has everything, and it's all current for that next year or so. So it's a good thing to have. This is also, I refer to it as like the Bible of rabbit raising, because when we're showing, we're doing everything, we're always going to refer back to that. So that's kind of the standard that we base everything on. It cost around $20 to $30. I thought when I bought it, it was like 35, but I got on today and it was 23, but probably just because they're clearancing them out, I'm guessing. But it's a great, like, if you're looking for like Christmas birthday gift ideas, it's a really handy thing to have. So again, that's the standard of perfection. It's the baseline for everything we do. So the biggest question we get when we're determining like our show classes and how that all works is how do I figure this out? And when we go through, and I know a lot of people on this call have been through a show, and sometimes they'll come up and the judge will give them comments, or they'll get a white ribbon or something, and they'll say, well, I have a pedigree. I know that this is this. And in some species, when you're showing different things, you maybe have to present papers or that sort of thing. Rabbits aren't like that. Rabbits we show based on their phenotype versus their genotype. So we don't care what their genetics are. I mean, we kind of do, but what really matters is what we're physically looking at in front of us. So an animal can genetically be the breed, but not accurately represent the standard. And that's something to remember when you're selecting your stock, when you're signing up for shows. Also, a pedigree is not a guarantee of quality. So just because it has papers doesn't mean it necessarily meets the standard. And where this is all going to apply is when we get to kind of signing up for classes. That's going to determine how you do that. And then registration is something that some animals do have, and that's a better guarantee because then you've had a judge actually look at it, say that it, has a pedigree, and then also it meets that standard. But you can also have animals, I mean, we have animals that would have met the standard, but 3 years later, they don't anymore. So it's not always, there are no guarantees in animals, but it's a better indicator. And a great example, and this is the one I use the most, is over here. I've got a couple of pictures of Hollands. These are both Holland Lops. They're both pedigreed Holland Lops, but they look very, very, very different. This one above is one that meets the standard. This is straight out of the Arba book. This is like, close. And this is down here, something that would, I mean, if we even saw it, I'm not even sure we would recognize it as a Holland. So that's something to think about when you're picking your classes. And we have a place for those rabbits. And that's the thing. We want to make sure that everybody understands that there's a place to show everything. But if you're looking for something that is meeting that standard, you need to go with the top stuff. So when you're signing up, it's either a 4 class or a 6 class, depending on a breed. And it's divided by their age versus if they are a heavyweight or a lightweight. So if they're a heavyweight, and I've got a list here that'll flip over in a second. If they're a heavyweight, you're going to have 3 different classes. And you've got birth to 6 months as a junior, 6 to 9 months as an intermediate, and 9 months and above would be a senior. So it doesn't matter necessarily. I mean, sometimes weight's a little bit, but it's really based on age. And then for a lightweights, it's birth to 6 months as a junior, 6 months over as a senior. So when you're signing up, this is what you're going to see. And this is where it gets a little bit interesting with a 4-H show versus an ARBA show, because like we don't have all the breeds listed here. These are really just the ones that we see very often. So that's why you've got those other heavyweights. And if you go down below, here actually lists the birth dates on there. A lot of times when you show it won't list the birth date, so you just kind of have to do it in your head, and it's the birth date based on when the show will take place. So, like, if you're signing up for the county fair, you're signing up maybe in April or May, the county fair is not going to happen until July. So you want to sign up for the age that they will be at the show in July. So heavyweights, you've got a junior doe, intermediate doe, senior doe, junior buck, intermediate buck, senior buck. Lightweights over here, these are typically your smaller breeds. English Spot, Harlequin, Havana, uh, little guys. Rex is always the tricky one because it's actually it's a lightweight, even though it tends to look like a bigger animal. And those are going to have your junior, senior, junior, senior. Super easy. So 4-H shows, and this is the Marion County version. Every county does it a little bit different. Like I said before, papers are not required. And here's the big difference between like an ARBA show and the 4-H show. And I think the best example is like the 4-H show is almost like the Kids Bop version of a song. So it's like basically the same. It's almost exactly, but there's a few things that are toned down to be more age appropriate. So, like, we have a crossbred class. You're not going to find that in an ARVA show. So that every single animal, and so if you have an animal like that Holland Lop that really doesn't look like a Holland Lop, you really just enter it in a crossbred. And then they still have a place to do. And those are judged on condition. And then just real fast, meat pens kind of are like the weird part of that. And they are judged on the meat pen standards, which also come from the standard of perfection. But that section on conformation, you just pick the breed it most closely resembles. So it might not be a purebred Californian. It might be a Californian New Zealand cross. Looks like a Californian. They're going to judge it most closely on a Californian. So that's kind of the quick version. I want to just hop out for a second. I'll stop my share. If anybody has any questions, and then I'll take you to the ARBA website because it's awesome. We are very lucky and have a very good resource for that. Okay, can you guys see? Perfect. Okay. So if you go to the ARBA website and if you go to home, it's just arba.net, super easy to find. I'll put it in the chat in a minute here. And you can see the standard of perfection. There's all kinds of contests you can do through them, which is actually really fun. If you've ever like been interested in doing like their royalty contests or something, they're a blast, especially if you like the judging and ID stuff. It's a really cool thing to do. So if you click to here where it says recognized breeds, and this is great because it's on the internet, it's a free resource. You go through that and it'll show you all the recognized breeds. And you can see this list is longer than what you see on like our signups for fair. If it's on here, we'll still judge it. Like it'll still be part of the 4-H show. You just have to tell us you have it. We just don't see like this one's a great example. The blue Hollister, we just don't see that very often. And KVs are also included here. There's only 13 breeds of KVs, so you can click through that and it'll take you to the club. And it's just a really good Czech Frosty's another one we don't see very often, but it's a recognized breed and you can still show it. And this gives you a brief description. And so if you are considering getting an animal, maybe you're just getting into this is a great place to go and kind of check out what it should look like so that you have an idea of what you're looking for. There's a French lop like Lena's. So then also just real fast on here, join ARBA, join Renew, and this is where you can get all these resources. You might recognize this person. She has judged for us. They haven't updated their website in quite a while, I guess. And then you also get this domestic rabbit magazine, which is kind of handy. So that is the quick version of rabbit resources, where to get them, ARBA, that sort of thing. It's much less complicated than some of the other species. Are there any questions? Okay, Sierra, I think you're up.
Alrighty. Sounds good. Thank you, Sarah. And bear with me. I have a kitten that has decided being on the desk is where he needs to be. So he might join us a little bit. So I'm going to talk about pigeons and poultry. And unfortunately, we don't have as nice of an online resource as ARBA does. Um, I'll show you the websites, and there is some good information, but it doesn't have like a list of the breeds like the ARBA website does, unfortunately. Okay. All right. So there are a couple acronyms that you will see in the fair book with pigeons and poultry. So APA. So the APA is the American Poultry Association. That is the gold standard. When you are talking about standard bred birds, it is APA standard. And that is for America. So that's Canada, Mexico, and the USA. Um, and it is only in book form. So they just released their new standard of perfection. I'll show it on the website, and it is more expensive than the ARBA standard. Unfortunately, it's about $65. If you choose to be competitive in more open shows at our county fair, it's not as pertinent, but on the state level or anything like that, it is worth investing in. And they come out about every 10-ish years. So it's a little longer amount of time. Sometimes they'll come out more frequently than that if there's a new breed accepted, but that doesn't happen very often. It's a pretty intensive process to get a new breed added into the standard. And then we have the American Bantam Association, the ABA, which is like the standard of perfection because the American Poultry Association standard has bantam breeds in it. The only difference with the ABA is it is only those bantam breeds. So if you only show bantams and only want to compete with bantams, which are like they're the counterpart to standard bred chickens, it's worth getting it. And it is sometimes a little cheaper right now because it's their anniversary. I believe the ABA, and we'll look, but I believe the ABA standard is about $75. But they do have a pocket standard, which is $10, which is a really nice little resource that's only about this big. And you can just put in your pocket and be able to refer to it. And that's pretty nice. And then we have the NPA, which is the National Pigeon Association, which maintains the centralized standard of perfection for pigeons. It's not like the APA, where the APA, that is the standard and they maintain, like they create and maintain all that. Pigeons, it's by breed, they set their own standard. So it's more similar to like the American Kennel Club with dogs. It's a little more variable, and there's a lot more breeds of pigeons. And that book is far more expensive than the APA or the ABA. It's about $200. And we'll go to those websites at the end. So how this connects to the fair book is APA standard bred large fowl. So that is a breed found in the American Standard of Perfection. You can look, if you don't have the book, You can look it up. You can always reach out to us, and we're happy to help you make those determinations for whether they're in the standard, especially if you're kind of new or just starting. But a good rule of thumb is if you get it from a breeder, it's most likely closer to the standard than if you go to Wilco and buy a buff Brahma, for example, from Wilco. The odds of that being a standard buff Brahma is slim to none. So you are much better off going into this crossbred class here. That is what it is set up for. So, and any of those breeds, like it's really common right now in feed stores to have breeds such as the blue sapphires or the red rangers, or any those breeds are made by feed stores and hatcheries. They are not in the standard. So they are meant for backyard flocks, which is perfectly fine. And you just want to make sure you put them in the crossbred fowl class, because they will not do well at all in the APA, because they won't line up with what the APA wants. Non-standard. So this is where the trickiness gets. Non-standard is not for breeds that, like the Wilco bird. Non-standard would be a breed of bird that is in a different standard of perfection, such as the English or the Japanese standards, or is in a different color. Because like right now, I don't know if you've heard of lavender Orpingtons. They're kind of popular right now, and they're this really pretty lavender color. They're not in the standard, but Orpingtons are. So they would be in a non-standard class because they're in a color that is not currently in the standard, but the breed itself is. And if you need any help clarifying that, you're always welcome to reach out. It is confusing. I understand it is confusing. But yeah, that's the good rule of thumb. Or like a common breed that you see around that is not in the standard of perfection, but is in the English standard of perfection, is like the Appenzel's or Spitzenhaben. You do see them around. They are not in the American standard of perfection, but they are in the English standard. So you could show them as non-standard. Your crossbred birds are also going to be, other than those backyard crosses, feed store birds, those would also be if you're going to show any kind of market animal, any of those Cornish crosses or broad-breasted. We'll get to other fowl, but broad-breasted turkeys also would go into crossbred class because those are not standard breeds of turkey. And then for bantams, it's pretty much the same, except it's APA and ABA. And the reason for that is, like I said, the ABA is the counterpart to the American Standard of Perfection, the American Breed Association Standard of Perfection. And it has all the same breeds. It's just only the bantams. So if they're standard in the American Bantam Association, it'd also be standard in the American Poultry Association, is kind of how that works. So that's why there's that extra acronym for the bantams. Then when we I actually do want to talk real quick about, this is also divided by ages like rabbits are, and it's pullets, hens, cockerels, and cocks. Pullets are chickens under a year old at the time of show. Hens are chickens over a year old at the time of show. Cockerels are under a year old at the time of show. Cocks are over a year old at the time of show. And that's how the age divisions are. So if you see these empty numbers here, that I didn't put that part of the fair book in, but that's where you put in the age of the bird you're showing. So pigeons are separated into classes, and the best way to find out if you have a pigeon, and you want to know what class it is in, the best way is probably to Google it. There are about 250 different breeds of pigeons, and they are all divided into these classes: Homer, performing, fancy, utility, and then doves, which are actually, they're kind of similar to how cavies and they're similar enough that they put them together, but doves are a bit different than pigeons, but they're in the same standard. And then they also go by age. It's the same thing. Under a year old, young hen, young cock would be under a year old, and then old is over a year for both those, old hen and old cock. And then other fowl. So that is your turkeys, your ducks, your geese, your pheasants, your guinea fowl, your quail. So they can be APA standard bred. There are ducks and geese and turkeys and guinea fowl in the standard, But I will say, if you get, like, say you have your market birds that are broad-breasted bronzes, and you want to show one of your backups as a breed class, it's totally fine, but it would need to go into this commercial class because broad-breasted bronze is not a recognized variety of turkey. There are only 7, and bronze is, but not broad-breasted, and that's an important distinction. And this will be, we'll update this, but this could be ducks or geese too. There are APA standard ducks and geese, and there are even duck breeds that are APA and ABA standard, such as call ducks or mallard ducks, because they are bantam ducks. So they are in the bantam standard as well. So they can be APA and ABA standard. I am going to close out for just a second so I can pull up those websites to show you.
Hey, Sierra, you do also have a question in the chat. Do you want it now or do you want to wait?
Okay, yeah, what's the question?
The
No, what's the
question
question?
is, any recommendations on where to find birds that meet the SOP, standard of perfection?
That is hard right now. There's not a lot of breeders in the area. You can do some looking around. Unfortunately, in this area of the United States, there's not as many APA breeders, but there is you can look on the website. I'll pull that up right now. It does have a breeders directory, and they're gold standard breeders, which are people who have been breeding for a long time. And then they also have, there's also a website called Poultry Show Central, and sometimes those have breeders on there, or going to a show that has an open show, because a lot of times those breeders will be selling birds. So like Clackamas County Fair is one of them. The state fair, that is a good place to go and see some nice birds that are closer to the standard what you're looking for. There's not that many open shows in Oregon, unfortunately, but those are some good options. And if you want to, if there's a certain breed you're looking for or anything like that, you're always welcome to reach out. But yeah. All right, I'm going to share my screen again. So this is the APA website. It does have some information about finding events coming up, but like I said, unfortunately in our area, our region of the United States, there's not that many open shows. There are some up in Washington. Clark County Fair is a really good place to go. That's just across the way, and they have a good selection of birds. You could also join a club, which is more focused on like a certain breed or a certain area. If there is a breed that like you really like silkies and you want to join the club, and that'd be a good way to find some high quality birds as well. They do have some really cool youth programs where you can join the APA at a reduced cost. And if you, oh, and here's the Poultry Show Central. This is a good resource to look at. But if you choose to show more competitively or at open shows or things like that, it is definitely worth joining the APA. And if you dream of being a poultry judge someday, an APA certified one, you have to accrue points, and joining younger helps you do that a lot quicker. And the price for a youth membership is not too, I'll pull it up real quick, not too expensive as in comparison to an adult one. So for a junior, it's about $20 for an annual membership or $50 for 3 years. And then it gets a little bit older when you're an adult. And then there are international, you can join outside of North America. And then there is some education resources. There's information about breeds. There's lots of good articles written by master showmen or people who have been in the poultry industry a long time. And they do have some good video resources as well, but it doesn't have breeds laid out like the ARBA website does, unfortunately. But you could, if there's a breed that you're interested in, there's likely an article about best ways to breed it, or like this one's about call ducks and the best way to get the head shape and things that you want with a call duck. And then you can always buy the APA. They just released, this is the brand new one. They just released it. They actually released it back in 2023, and there are so many errors that they had to pull it back, and they have now officially re-released it. And this should be good for about 10 years. And they now have a spiral bound version, which is pretty cool because they didn't have that before. And they do have some other fun stuff. But that's the APA. And you can look at events too. I will say the events are like national level, and they're usually not very close to us. Like the next APA shows in Arkansas. So that's the APA. Now this is the American Bantam Association, which is similar. They have their own standard. That's kind of what it looks like. They do have the little one I'll show you that I was kind of talking about before. Is this little guy sold out right now? But it's pretty fun. It's only $10, and it does fit in your pocket, which is nice because most standards won't do that. Ow, sorry, my cat. You can also get leg bands from either the APA or ABA. Some shows require that you have leg bands. So that's a good place to get them. But see, this hardcover Bantam standard is $75. So it's actually more expensive than the APA standard. They do have some additional resources like articles and things like that, but not quite as much information as the APA website. So if you're looking for articles or information or thinking about which association to join, I would recommend the APA over the American Bantam Association. But it is a good resource to have. And then next, we're going to talk about the Pigeon Association. So this is the NPA, the National Pigeon Association. And they're kind of the conglomerate of all the different breeds of pigeon. They do have some more information as far as if you're looking for what class your pigeon is in. But here's the caveat with it. The NPA uses different classes than we do. If you notice, they have form, owl and frills, croppers and pouters, wattle, trumpeters, color, structure. Those are not the classes we use. So it's not of that much help. But if you go to an open show, these are the classes they use now in open shows. And then they do have a list of all the different names as well, if that's easier for you to look at in alphabetical order. But they don't have nice pictures or breed descriptions or anything like that. But you can search them just in Google and usually find them. And then they also do have a standard. And for pigeons, especially depending on what kind of pigeon you have, like homers or ones that you race, it is important to have leg bands. They're very strict about leg bands in the NPA and for any kind of competitive show. And you can get those here. And then they do have the book of standards you can get, which when they say it's over 600 pages, it is. It's a big book. There's a lot to it. But it is about $175. So I wouldn't recommend buying it unless you are absolutely dead set on showing pigeons and really enjoy it, which is amazing. But it is a big investment, and they're all sold out right now. So I think they're looking at releasing a new one because this is the 2024. I believe they release them every other year. And they do also have a list of shows for the Pigeon Association. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing here. Any other questions? I know that was a lot of information just kind of thrown out there. Or any questions for Sarah that may have came up? All
I have
right.
questions about showing emus now, but just because of those websites you showed us.
They are not in the standard. I think they would
Oh,
technically be considered companion pets
okay.
because they don't fit in any other class. Peacocks too.
Hmm.
All right.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Well, wonderful. Thank you for joining us. And this will be available. We'll send this out tomorrow to everybody for anyone that might have missed it, or if you have members that you think would be interested in this, feel free to share. And they don't have to be necessarily Marion County. We did talk about some specific Marion County stuff, but feel free to share this with anyone that is interested in small animals.
Thank you, ladies.
Yes, thank you. Oh, that's our other poultry superintendent, Jula.